need to test that it's working, right? Okay. Is that working?
Yep.
Coming through loud and clear. Fantastic. Well, good morning, REC Marketing Forum. My name is Michael Oliver. I am a marketing manager here at the REC, and welcome to our third marketing forum for 2018, and a special one because it is the first time in REC history that we are live streaming one of our events. So a big welcome to everyone in the room here today, and to all of those people who are tuning in online. We have a fantastic show for you today. I'm very excited about it. It's something I've been interested in for a long time. But before we begin, just a couple of notes of housekeeping. If you need to use the bathroom, they are around the corner and to the left. And in the unlikely event of a fire alarm, we will just go down the stairs and evacuate just down there. But I don't anticipate that way. So another thing before we start, we've noticed that this particular group, the Marketing Forum, is one of the most popular ones we have here at the REC, and we're eager to kind of capture that and extend it beyond meeting once a quarter. So following the meeting today, you'll be getting an email with some feedback, asking for your feedback, since this is the first time we have live streamed it. And we also want to know what are the best ways to keep the momentum going. So whether or not it's a LinkedIn group or a WhatsApp group or whatever the case may be, we want to keep the conversation going. So any feedback you have about how to continue the conversation, that would be fantastic. But enough from me, and without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the stage two gentlemen who know their video inside and out. They are the founders of Business Film Booth, which is an award-winning video production company, and they're gurus of all things to do how to make video work for your organization. So round of applause please for Ed and Dave.
Good afternoon, Business Film Booth. Ed speaking.
What's up?
What's up?
What's up?
What's up?
What's up?
From 1999 onwards, Budweiser managed to get people screaming at each other down their phones.
They'd not created an advert, they'd created a cult hit, something that people wanted to be part of. To quote DDB's John Bagoni, this didn't feel like advertising.
Fast forward to the modern day and Facebook are being slammed for dodgy data. The GDPR is about to delete half of your email list, and we're constantly being bombarded with content for the sake of content.
We're being sold the latest thing to 10x your growth.
Chatbots that are better salespeople than you.
Marketing that works while you sleep, repeating the same message over and over and over.
Blogs, vlogs, podcasts and pugs. Well, not pugs, are flooding our social media every day.
It appears nobody has the time anymore to say, what's up?
What's Up didn't rely on tricks or surveillance or data. It relied on telling a simple story people could relate to and want to be part of.
As Advertising Age put it, any advertising that's so good it has mothers leaving what's up on answer phone messages has got to be good.
My mum literally still does this.
What's up?
We're not just thinking, what's up was for a massive corporation. As a small business, you don't have the kind of budget that allows for that sort of creative.
The thing is, the idea didn't even come from an ad agency. Budweiser took it from a short film by Charles Stone called True.
The point is, the campaign was inspired by a story, and that's what's always worked and always will.
We are literally telling you a story right now, live.
There's no doubt that technology will continue to throw up new tricks to get your audience to buy, and in fact, we'll probably try them as well.
But technology just isn't marketing, because anyone out there can use it, and this has created a slush pile of nonsense.
Basically, we need less WhatsApp and more what's up. Budweiser, king of beers.
Dave, that's a Guinness.
I'm not drinking Budweiser, it's disgusting.
Let's work you up a little bit. So, if technology has murdered marketing, what is the solution? And if you think about your own marketing that you've done and you've tried on digital platforms, you've probably had quite a few failures, or you've been underwhelmed by certain areas, whether it's SEO, pay-per-click, Facebook ads, Google. And we come across a lot of businesses who have the same problem. They try stuff, it doesn't seem to work. It doesn't necessarily mean it won't work. It means that basically, the problem we see a lot is that there's not enough meaning or purpose to the content that goes out. And actually, the stuff they're putting out isn't creating enough value for their audience. So when we talk about value, the best place to examine this is to go back in time to the 70s, when Pepsi conducted what was known as the Pepsi Challenge. And the Pepsi Challenge was a blind taste test. They wanted to debunk that Coke was a better drink. So they blindfolded a load of willing participants and they said, which tastes better? And the overwhelming majority said Pepsi. You might have heard about this. 16 years later, someone called Dr. Reed Montague, who is a neuroscientist from California, he wanted to figure out why Coke still had the biggest market share, because apparently everyone prefers the taste of Pepsi. So he put more participants in an MRI scan, and he wanted to register what part of their brain was doing what, to see why it was that people still bought Coke. So he did the same test, and it was interesting enough, it was exactly the same. The ventral putamen, the area of our brain that is responsible for our taste receptors, lit up, and actually the participants did prefer the taste of Coke. Pepsi, they weren't lying, their brains agreed. We did the same test again, took off the blindfolds and said to them, which one do you prefer? And the overwhelming majority came back and they said, we prefer Coke, which is unusual. So he looked at the scanner again, and this time, the prefrontal cortex had lit up. Now the prefrontal cortex is the part of our brain that is responsible for emotion, and it's where we store things of value. And what Coke has done a great job is making us feel that we have, it's more of a valued product than us. It's so valuable to us, it can actually override our taste sensors. So that's why Coke always seems to win, and the way it's done it is through its branding, its Christmas ads, the way it made you feel. So we need to take the great things that Coke.
It turns out that humans crave meaning. So you're already at an advantage if you're working in marketing and you want to do this, because humans aren't expecting it. So anytime you offer it, they're going to lap it up. Imagine a phone call where someone calling you that you've never met knew all about you and your staff, and they actively wanted to work with you. Well, today we wanted to help you imagine exactly the kind of sales and marketing funnel led by video that will give you phone calls like that. Okay, so in the beginning of this session, we're going to cover all that sales and marketing funnel. We're going to walk you through every step of it and where to use video and how. And then after the break, we're going to show you how you get ROI, at least how you know you're getting ROI, how to measure it, and then we'll show you some basic tips about both being on camera and the techniques and formats that you use to do it effectively and repeatedly. So that's what we're going to cover. But let's dive right on in. We're going to start at the top of the sales funnel that we use, and that is awareness, assuming that nobody even knows that your company or your people exist. How are you going to connect with those precious human beings that you want to connect with? So let's start at the top of the funnel with awareness.
So imagine you open up.
Start by jumping in straight to another short video. This is a vlog from one of our clients who owns a IT support company, which is a pretty dry industry to be involved with. But let's check out what we came up with anyway.
So imagine you open up your electricity bill and it's gone up by £1,000. A friend of mine the other day, he bought one of these really, really nice fridges, £3,000 worth of fridge. You know, you open the door and it tells you exactly that you need milk and tea and coffee and salami, you name it. Anyway, he gets his bill and it was massive. So immediately he thought there was a problem with the fridge. Anyway, he phones the fridge manufacturer and said, there's a problem with the fridge, look at all the electricity. They then traced it down that somebody hacked into the fridge and started mining Bitcoin. And of course, guess what that does? It uses so much electricity. Why am I telling you this story? Because if people can get into your fridge, they can get into your baby camera, they can get into your router, they can get into your little Wi-Fi camera, and then if you can get your home devices hacked in, guess what? A lot of people work from home. So then they can put ransomware on the machines you're working on, and then of course you plug in a USB pen, take that to the office, and now you're affecting the office. So please, I'm begging you that if you buy anything, this is called the Internet of Things, anything that's connected to your network, either at home or the office, like a smart TV or anything, please do the first thing you do when you take it out of the box, make sure you change the password. Because otherwise, that password is either going to be admin and admin, admin and password, or admin and no password, and hackers can get in and they will exploit you and you're going to end up not eating that month because you've got to pay the electricity bill.
It's a pretty simple video. So why does it work? Well, the reason it works is because Francis has realised that security isn't the most interesting thing, and the thing that is more interesting is the story and the peculiar thing that happened to his friend. And by focusing more on that and keeping it quite playful, it creates content that we can sort of digest, but it also has purpose and meaning, because that's what he's all about. And more importantly, what it does is it creates what we call social currency. So social currency is basically, it's a new currency. So we have time, we have money, and actually scientists have discovered that we get the same dopamine hit when we make money as actually when we share a story. So you know when Breaking Bad came out and your friend hadn't seen it, and you'd say, well, you haven't seen it, you've got to watch it. And you really wanted them to watch it because we're selfish and we want all the value that Breaking Bad's put in. We want that to reflect back on us, and it's the reason why we share content. So the emotions that make us do it are awe and joy and so on. But if you can create something that you want other people to see, then that's how we can start getting sharing. So I'll show you some pictures later of what happened with this video itself, although it's very simple. Now the problem we have at the moment is there's a massive tick box mentality when it comes to putting out content to try and get awareness, especially for video. You always hear these gurus going, just film anything, pick up your phone, it doesn't matter. And it's the worst advice. Why would you put out something that sucks rather than spending a little bit of time to come and sort of make it slightly more interesting? Francis is in an industry that is a bit dry, so he's really got to work harder to capture people's imaginations. Now, the ways to create awareness with video, there's a couple of types. We have what we call hero content, which YouTube refers to it as, and that's what Nike are brilliant at doing. They put out those World Cup videos, and they're very high budget, and there's a lot of there's a lot of money that's gone into it, but it also spearheads a whole entire marketing campaign. For a lot of SMEs, it's really out of reach, and actually we wouldn't recommend trying to go viral because the amount of distribution margin, the audience you need there already to put it out, it's just too high risk. So what do? You make help content, useful videos, just like people do when they're blogging, but you try and solve the problems of your audience. And if you do it and it creates social currency, your audience will start sharing it for you because they want all the glory. The key thing not to do is to talk about yourself. And people always come to us, they want a promo because they want to tell everyone what they do. And the problem is no one wants to hear what they do. They want to hear about the problems they can solve and how they can solve them. They need some proof. So never talk about yourself in your awareness content. And the future for people who do this is they will build a distribution network. They won't have to worry necessarily about SEO and pay-per-click because they should have an engaged audience that every time a video comes out, they want to share it because it reflects well on them. Now I'm just going to show you what happened with this video, and it didn't go viral, nothing like that as you could probably expect, but what happened was Francis got in contact with us after a 10-month marketing campaign, and he's put a lot of money into it, and it delivered no leads at all, and it was using marketing automation and HubSpot and blogging and so on. So I went back through his LinkedIn, and I checked all the posts they put out, and Francis has followed 15,000 people on LinkedIn. The most likes or any engagement he got on one post was 2 likes out of everything he put up with this 10 months. So when he rang me, he was in a bit of a kerfuffle. I just said, look, a lot's changed. Upload your videos to LinkedIn. Do 1 a day. He's got about 80 or 90 with us. And this is what started to happen. And actually, okay, I don't like likes as a metric because often it's kind of a vanity metric. But people started to interact with it. They started to engage. They started to ask him questions. They started to share it. And more importantly, they started to tag their friends, which I've just highlighted down here, which is good. He's created social currency because this guy wants his mate to see it because he feels it's relevant and he wants all the glory of the content that Francis has produced. So we did another test on LinkedIn using video with ourselves because it wasn't that long ago they introduced native video uploads. And we did 2 weeks posting one of our videos like you've seen at the start of the day, but just a link to our site, and then 1 video a day going up to LinkedIn natively. So without them leaving the platform. And this is what happened. So the reach increased by 3.98%. It's not much. So what's that telling us? Actually, LinkedIn's not actually favouring putting video in front of other people. They are fiddling with the algorithm a lot, but really, they're not putting video first. The likes increased by 269% on the native uploads. So all that really tells us is that probably more people watched it rather than just pressing like because they saw it and agreed with the title. Comments increased 200%. Tags and shares increased by 400%. Traffic to our site, 0. This was an error on our behalf. We didn't put any links trying to drive people back to the site. We've since changed that. And new followers on my own personal profile increased 428%. But most importantly, direct leads on LinkedIn went up from 0 with 2 weeks of posting content to 3. And I've got a screenshot here of the people that messaged me, never met me before, and they shared it. They created, so one of their friends has shared it, and they saw us that way. So we created some social currency and it came back on us. Now the interesting thing is, when you look at these likes and things increase, and we did get comments on our links back to our blog post that has a video on it. When I looked at our Google Analytics, not one person in 2 weeks clicked on one of our blog posts. It just said they liked the image. We create these creative thumbnails, they probably just got past and click, oh, I like these guys, click on them. So really that tells us if we want to start driving traffic to our site, we want to create some more awareness, people to share our stuff, then we need to be uploading video to LinkedIn and forgetting about driving to the site, because you can start to generate business just through your team and your own page. So that brings us nicely onto consideration.
And it's at this stage that you might think, well, excellent, I can just stop there. But we would say, don't. And here's why. This may look like a similar type of video, but we'll explain why this also works further down the funnel after people are aware that you exist. Or we do it after.
So,
Well, before,
so,
oh, there it is.
yeah.
I'll come back to that. Okay, let's watch this video first.
I often get asked how to run effective meetings. But let's start with why. Why do you need to run effective meetings? Seems obvious, but let me give you some stats. Recent research has shown that meetings cost, on average, a company £16,000 a year per head. Or putting it another way, in the Forbes top 2,000 companies, each meeting costs £355. So they better work, right? The thing is, they don't. Here are some more stats. 47% of participants say that meetings are a waste of time. Even worse, 39% of people admitted they'd fallen asleep during the meeting. And don't even get me started on the 90% who are in the room, but they're not in the room. So, how do we change this? How do you make your meetings as effective as they can possibly be? We've developed a very simple, easy to follow formula called Oracle. Organize, respect, action and agenda. Now, okay, we cheated there a little. You got 2 A's for the price of 1. Concise, listen, and engage. Oracle. I'm going to take you through each letter and give you a headline view of what each letter stands for in Oracle. But for an expanded view, don't forget to download the PDF at the end of this video. O stands for organize. Make sure you organize in advance. Communicate to the participants where the meeting is to take place, at what time, with enough warning, and the core objective of the meeting. R, respect. Participants arrive on time, switch their mobiles off, really important. A, agenda and action. All meetings must have a clear agenda, and all actions and decisions must be recorded and circulated to everybody who attended. Concise. Any preparation work or reading must be completed before the meeting, so the meeting can be concise, on point, and delivered in a timely manner. L, listening. Listen with the intent to understand, not just the intent to reply. Because when you're intending to reply, you switch off and you stop listening. E, engage. Engaged participants will work smarter to achieve a better result in less time. So there you have it. Don't become a negative statistic. Right? Make sure all your meetings are as effective as they can be by following the Oracle formula.
So why does this work in the consideration stage? You know, John is a process consultant. If you were ever you're following him because you might find that sort of content useful and helpful, but then at some point, as a business leader, you might need a process consultant. But suddenly you've met one because you've been watching John's content for a couple of years. And the truth is, it may take a couple of years of someone being aware of you in your orbit before they need you either as a recruiter or want to come and work for you. Get the idea. All right, so think of it like this, right? We can take a leaf, excuse the pun, out of religion's books here. How many sermons done by a priest are going to be identical? They're not, they're always different. But what they're doing, and religions do this exceptionally well, they understand that human beings, even with important information they feel they want to impart, religions know that you need to repeat the same information in different packages over and over again. because we don't take it in. We don't see one video and go, great, I'm going to buy that. We need to see lots of them, and it needs to be packaged differently. So sermons are different every time. We repackage the same religious information into a new story. So keep that in mind. You've got to iterate and continue making this sort of content regularly so that you enlarge your orbit of influence. So this helps over time for you to leverage and compound the engagements you have. You're not starting from zero anymore. The more that you make, like interest, will compound. All right, so the sort of things that you should be doing in the consideration stage is vlogs like you've already seen, but you can also be doing, and I'll come to this in a moment, testimonials and case studies. There's a reason for that. What does the future look like? Well, like I suggested at the beginning, the future is one in which people get to know you this way. And when they call, those calls are going to be warmer, and they will call. They will call and they'll understand exactly what you are about, they'll be pre-framed, and they'll be ready either to work with you or suggest somebody else to work with you. So let's have a look at this other part of consideration. This is another important aspect. This is not the same format as awareness completely. And look at these two lines. Now, some of you might have seen this optical illusion before, but you know, if I was to tell you they're both the same length, you might not believe me. You know, I'm telling you, right? But seeing isn't believing. You need proof. Those lines are exactly the same. That's the optical illusion. What does this mean in the consideration stage? So, what you don't want to be doing in the consideration stage is simply telling people how good your service is. The same reason we outlined in the awareness stage. What you do, and you can do, is offer proof. And the video version of proof is testimonials and or case studies. Let's have a look at an example.
These guys, they make it, just to give you some context, they make a software for an ERP system, so it's stock management.
Yeah, I should say, you're not in the market to buy this, so you're not going to necessarily get meaning out of this, but you need to see what a format looks like when it's targeted. So at a certain stage of consideration, you've been aware of this company for a long time, you vaguely know what they do. Oh, now I know exactly what they do. Well, I've got 5 others that I want to look at. Why am I considering you guys? This is going to cost a lot of money. Well, here's why.
My background is quite technical, and the more I've worked with the Intacct software, the more impressed I've been at its architecture and its ability to be completely flexible and accommodate all our requirements. When I joined the business, the ERP system that existed had been implemented about 15 years previously, and consequently it was very difficult to control inventory, understand stock valuations, track an order process from end to end, and have that kind of day-to-day visibility that an ERP system needs to provide. We chose Intacct IQ after looking at a number of other systems. Because of its flexibility, we felt that without too much effort we'd be able to get up and running and have an operational business. We couldn't risk a long project that just didn't work, and we came in on time and on budget, so we made the right decision. We had some initial training before all the configuration had been done to familiarise people with the new system, so they get that buy-in, they get the feel, they get to give some feedback into how they want things to work. The trainers from Intacct Software were absolutely great on that. They were able to steer the conversation in the right direction and enthuse people, and also answer basic questions on how to get the best from the system. There's a couple of things that we knew we needed modifications on. One of those is our bugs program. The modification for that is they are ordered and delivered almost in real time. So we've got this modification in the system that allows us one part of the business to run on weekly invoicing and reporting rather than monthly, and everything else runs on a normal monthly cycle. So the whole business has more visibility to what's going on a real-time basis, which allows us to look after our customers much better. We've got the analyst module, which allows us to build reports and views of our data and what's going on in the business in real time. And that's proved to be a huge incentive to actually look at the business from different directions and try and find ways of improving our processes, ways of improving our stock. Analyst gives a huge amount of flexibility, and we're only touching the surface of that at the moment.
So everyone wants to buy some ERP software now, right? Okay. Of course you don't. But why does this work? Because Intacct have been taken out of the room. Okay, so the client that you're buying product from isn't there. They've allowed us in as a mediator in this case, but it could still be done if you ask the right questions, to give proof, social proof in this case, that what we say is true. And at no point have Intacct said, we've got great service and a great product. You don't see it on their website at all. So don't take our word for it. Check out what our customers say. And so they've iterated that over and over again. Like the sermon being different, they've got other stories like this all over their website. So that's why it works. And that's why it's important in the consideration stage that you have a two-pronged approach. You can use the same content over and over again from your awareness stage, and it will compound into the consideration stage, but you also need to sweeten it with the proof, because people are then considering you, and you need to offer them the meaning and the purpose behind their purchase or their choice.
So that brings us on to this little saber-tooth sausage, and this is known as the naked mole rat. I can see some pretty disgusting faces out there. The naked mole rat is probably one of the most amazing animals on the whole entire planet. It doesn't age, it just dies of unfortunate circumstances, it can't get cancer, it can breathe on the water, and scientists are studying it now to try and learn something about our own bodies to try and cure more diseases. As an animal goes, although it's very unfortunate looking, it is probably one of the best animals on the planet.
Hang on, he's going somewhere else.
The problem is, amongst all other naked mole rats, it's not amazing. It's exactly the same. Unless it grew some wings, this one particular one, and flew away, and suddenly it would have something that made it stand out. So that brings us on, somehow, to your recruitment businesses. So you're all naked mole rats, basically, and you've not necessarily got anything that distinguishes you. And often businesses go straight to their service being the defining factor that they want to promote. And if we think about it, a service isn't something that's unique. Anyone can copy it. The only things that are unique to our businesses are the people that work for it, the clients, and maybe our own unique opinions. But otherwise, unless you've got a bit of tech no one else can copy, you're not unique. So you need to think of yourself as a naked mole rat and try and work out something that may diversify you when it comes to your sales promotional side, your promo. Now, here's a short paper from a recruitment company local to us.
Just before it plays this, you notice how far down the funnel this is. This is normally the first thing that people jump to, and it's not necessarily the first thing you should work on.
Meet Luke. Luke's a unicorn.
Luke is a unique employee with a special skill set.
He's bright, he's motivated, and he's eager to learn.
He is accountable, dependable, and consistent. Most importantly of all,
He really does exist.
they have 7 special traits.
They're unique,
They're natural,
they'll be imaginative,
capable,
outstanding,
they're rare.
and they're never failing. Ellis Mason, recruiting unicorns in your area.
But the reason it works is with some of the things we've just spoken about. Firstly, some of you are smiling after watching it, so that's always a bonus. It's got the people in it, it's got a little bit of knowledge in there, but it's also something at the end when they're talking about finding unicorns. It's the thing that will make them different. And if they continue to talk about this throughout all the other stages leading up to the promo, people will start to listen and they'll become known. That's what will differentiate themselves, potentially the people that will find unicorns. I'm sure you're familiar with that term through recruitment. It's the ultimate employee. So that's how they want to be pitched. Now the problem is at the moment is everyone, as I said, wants to jump in and talk about themselves, and they want to be talking about their service and these things that don't make them unique. The future for people who do this right is that it will create sometimes social currency. This video itself did get shared around a fair bit on LinkedIn. The girl in actually got recognised in a crash, which freaked her out a few weeks later. But expectations will be met. They'll meet the people behind the business. You can show off the personalities, and the future for businesses who do this well is a bright one.
That brings us on to a stage at which people don't necessarily think video can or should help. But we think this is actually one of the most important areas. Because client-supported onboarding is where if you're upping your capacity by digitizing a lot of your awareness and consideration, then of course you're going to have more customers. That's what you want, that's the aim. So you're not going to have the capacity in the back end to have people answering lots of questions endlessly and helping bring new clients on board successfully and to keep them happy. What you want then is you want to systematize that. You want to have videos that will help people understand your service or product more deeply, they'll help them use it better, and the result will be that you'll get more upselling, you get more referrals, And you get clients that are just happy that they haven't been left in the lurch. So after sales works brilliantly using video. It could be as simple as a series of FAQ videos. You get to meet somebody from the company that answers the questions that you have about the recruitment process, or about things that might help, tips, this sort of thing for first interviews and so on. Or if you're actually the company that's recruiting somebody, what orientation is like. So someone might actually start already understanding the first 5 days of the process. That's the sort of content that you should be making in this stage. So we're going to show you a quick example of how this can also be used. You've got ECA is a national accreditation body. Now they've got a membership in this case that gets paid for by electricians. They unpack and disseminate important new legislation in a way that's accessible. That's basically what they're paid for by the members. Now the members need to see the value of that. So the way that they've done that is they've taken some pretty arcane legislation and said, don't read all of it necessarily. These are the most important things you need to focus on that have come out so that you can operate safely. And they've put it out in an email to their members. They've got tens of thousands of them nationwide, and they've the email that they put out is the highest in terms of engagement they've ever had, simply because it was a video. So people want to absorb information this way. So keep that in mind as well. There is an element of, oh, it's a video, I'll watch it. You've got that to play with. You do need to, of course, mean something, have some purpose behind video, otherwise I'll stop watching next ones you put out. But we'll only watch a little bit of this because it's quite arcane, but it'll give you an idea of what went into a video that helped people open emails.
Part 4 is where we start to see the real change. A significant new part to BS 7671 is Part 8. 25 pages long, talks about energy efficiency of electrical installations.
This part is all about a different mindset when it comes to designing electrical installation. It's about thinking about energy efficiency rather than just safety. The designer is to work with the client who will specify the level of energy efficiency for their installation.
Exactly. But you can see the tone. There's no sale, there's no selling anything there. And video can be used to do that as well. So I think the important point here is at this stage that the formats can be the same. We've got a handful of set formats. The formats can be the same, but the information and tone can be totally different. And you can make sure that you systematize a massive number of onboarding options and client support options without tying up your staff. That's the most important thing to know about that section of the funnel.
There's a text there.
Yeah.
That's supposed to say training.
But it says ETT, which is
which is alright. Okay. There we are. Training. Okay, cool.
This is the
So again, this is part of the same problem that Dave just mentioned before in client support and onboarding, in that some people have great problems where their marketing is working so well. There's a bottleneck in the bottom end. They can't get enough staff in to actually, take the capacity. And if you want to grow as quick as you can, then you need this bottom bit here to be working for you. So most people actually think about starting up here when it comes to making video. Really, they need to look at where the problems are in the business first. And what we tend to find is actually if they want to grow and they are growing, then training is probably the best place to start with video because it gives them the quickest possible return. So they don't have to go out and conduct a training course that takes a day to different people and so on. If they can turn it into a video course, which works just as well, then they've totally systematized it and then they've freed up their time to go and do other things. Now, video is a great way of learning. It may not be right for every situation where you do have to have hands-on, and it will never replace just jumping straight in and getting on with the job, but it will save a huge amount of time. This is a company who had a similar problem. This logistics firm, he was growing too quick, and he was like, I need to just train my staff. I can't keep up and doing it again. It's not quite relevant to anyone in the room, so I'll just show you a little bit of it, and then we'll move on.
So you've been out all day, you've had a busy day, lots of deliveries, and you've done probably a lot of miles. This is what you do when you get back to the depot. The guys in the warehouse may need some help. Please check with them. If they do, they may ask you to reload that vehicle. Here's the checklist before you go home. Have you
about this is the people watching will still get the feeling that the guy who owns the company is working with them. It's the same for all the other stages of the funnel. If you're using the people there, you've got that great personal connection, and you can systematize and scale up relationships using technology like you've never been able to do before. So the problem at the moment with training videos is you may have seen them that are very long-winded, dry. Someone's just gone in and said, you know, let's just film this, and they have to watch it because they're new and make sure they watch it. That's not going to help information uptake at all. We learn things when we're engaged, we're laughing. You know, this is the place that's not going to go at the front end of your business. So you can start having fun and doing things that maybe you wouldn't normally do in your comms. So you really just need to make sure that your audience does care about what you're presenting, and make it as engaging as possible. And that moves on to another slide which we've sort of added.
Yeah, so we've graded it out because this is a part of the funnel that doesn't exist, but we feel it should, and of course it's super relevant to everybody here. But there should be a recruitment part of your sales funnel, because as you grow, you've got to systematize how people are coming into your company. We talked about training once they're on board, but what about actually advertising to them in the first place? Well, let's have a look at a sample of a landing page that was used to drive traffic from an ad to help people understand what a company was like.
I started off as a trainee quite a long time ago now, 12 years ago, would you believe? To me, there was a clear, tailored package from that moment when I started to where I am now.
It's not just about you generating money. You are a person when you come here and you're treated as one.
I was a partner in a firm for over 30 years. Yeah, I could have seen myself out to retirement there, but I just wanted something more.
I get a lot of autonomy, so I can just satisfy my clients' needs based on the way I work.
Just moved here, but I do see myself here. You know, there is a strong work-life balance, which I do appreciate.
I had just come from a different work, and it was like a conveyor belt. So everyone did their little process, and then you would never see the final product. Whereas when I came into Landmark, from the first day, I was given a client. Here you go, from start to finish, this is yours, you have to manage it.
It just feels like it's much more open-minded.
You know, the environment of the firm is how I would run my own practice.
The open space allows me to sort of relax a bit.
I used to work with lovely people, but in a 1950s block.
Number one is the people I work with, and number two is being near a window. When I first came in, I was like, wow, this place is amazing.
Yeah, it uplifts you.
We want to go Ascot in June. We go golfing.
We've been to Harry Potter World.
We went clay pigeon shooting on the weekend.
There's a newspaper.
We have a dining club. There was also another club we started, which was the Runners Club. I never joined that. Here they really push you to do your best.
You know, I've done more here in the last 18 months than I had done at my previous firm for many years.
If you want to learn about something about tax, you can go to the tax people and ask them. If you want to learn something about COSEC, you can go to another member of staff.
You want to do it, you organise it, and they will help you achieve it.
I get to give work to somebody else, I get to review it, and then they can say, oh, you know, my manager taught me this. That's definitely the thing I'm most proud of. You're never going to complain if you got the right environment and you got the right people.
They value me as a person, they make me feel special.
This has definitely paid off. It's a great place to work.
You've got 5 or 6 other accountancy places you're going to look at. They've let you in. Now, coming inside their world a little bit like that is much less of a distraction to the business than open days or any other kind of way of letting people in. But the important thing is, it's not scripted. It was, what do you honestly have to say? There's nothing salesy about it. It's like, come here. It's like honest opinions. Okay, so letting people see the people and culture that is in there is going to help you stand out and help businesses generally stand out when you're recruiting. And so you also filter out the people that may not agree with it, because you might look at that and go, oh, that's touchy-feely. Fine. You might not be the right fit. So if you can show an honest picture, then you can get the right candidates. Filtering in and filtering out is desirable. Okay, so what can you do with that? I mean, we think that behind the scenes kind of format works. That's what that is. And it works because it's disarming, because you feel like, in moments, someone might say something that's inappropriate or something like that. It's perfect because it's high on engagement. And people want to meet people, they want to see people. So don't play it safe or be formal. Let things happen. Be aware that it will look like, it's meant to look unvarnished to some degree, and you'll get the right sort of impression for staff coming in, you'll get the right sort of people. But the future of, we think the future of recruitment looks like one in which there is a totally systematized approach to how people come into the company in the first place, and then they're trained this way as well. So it doesn't exclude, of course, a personal touch. What it does is it speeds it up, it heightens it, so that when people do come into your environment, they already understand it. They have expectations that are in line with what you've got. So we're going to take a break now, and popcorn, Fanta, whatever you want, and then we'll come back and watch some more videos and teach you all about ROI and also some presenting basics and formats to use for video production to give you an idea of how you actually make this stuff. Happy days. We'll see. And now I won't pretend to know exactly the schedule for that. How long we're going to take a break? Sorry, Mike.
15 minutes.
15 minutes? 15 minutes? Okay.
Take a look at this.
A letter A lettuce ate my grandmother.
like there to be a big button that you can just push and all this video is just automatically made for you perfect and it just talks to the right people instantly. We'd love that too. It doesn't work like that. So in part 2, we're going to be talking about the practical and the hard work that goes into both making it and measuring it. But let's talk about measuring it first. How do you actually get ROI? What sort of signals would you be getting? That's what we're going to tackle first. And I can't for life remember the first video we're going to play here. So
take a look at this. Seems innocent, doesn't it? But it's actually the reason there's been a divergence in the making of video for television versus internet.
And what does it mean for the making of business video?
First up, what do you mean by TV?
TV is a series of formats designed to keep you immersed for a set period of time.
Enormous energy and resources will go into the production in order to keep your attention for 30 minutes and beyond.
So that yes, you do technically hit play on Netflix or iPlayer. Once you do that, you are in for the duration because it's designed as a lean-in experience.
A lean-in experience? Internet video, on the other hand, was never just a different means of delivery.
It's disruptive force through the likes of YouTube about anybody on any budget to say whatever they wanted to say without the usual TV gatekeepers getting in the way.
One man or woman band productions now get millions of views, and this is all pretty common. And they do it with low or no budget filmmaking and just a simple talking head.
The best YouTubers regularly get viewing numbers that should make any TV executive green with envy.
If this is true, why isn't TV just making simple talking head videos?
Well, it turns out TV never lost the ability to make art. That is what all that extra time and expense is all about.
Even though the internet has stolen a lot of viewing hours from television, we still want to sit down and watch TV.
As the barriers to entry have dropped, user-made content has soared. We've all benefited from the platforms that exist to tell your business story. Runway TV, an interview sequence that looks like BBC Hard Talk but is actually extolling the virtues of a new VoIP service is always going to look like a poor cousin. Unless, of course, that business person is a business superstar or it's groundbreaking movie material.
When businesses try to emulate the top productions on TV with added complexity, then they're only going to fall short.
You can achieve great things for your business using video, keeping it simple, short to the point of being blunt, and consistent. There, nice little blessing.
Okay. So we can sort of
pretty much have stolen in front of there, sorry.
Metrics to look at to measure how you know things work. So once you've worked out your purpose, your meaning, the value and what kind of funnel you need to put it at, how you're going to distribute it, you don't need to track it and go, well, what it's actually doing. Good news is most platforms you can track things on really well. But the number one metric that you have to track above everything else is engagement. And unfortunately, LinkedIn doesn't give us this. And Facebook completely manufacture this as well. But YouTube, other platforms, other places, it will tell you exactly what people think of the content. So engagement is known as watch rate on YouTube, and it's the main ranking factor. That's why videos rank on YouTube, because people watch them for longer. So if one video's got 10,000 views and one's got 100, and the one with 10,000 views is only getting watched 20% of the way, YouTube will move it down the ranks to push up one with 100 views, it's getting watched over 65% of the way, for example. So the average video online is only watched 35% of the way through. That's why a lot of the stats are nonsense, tracking the wrong direction. Engagement is, like I said, it is the number one stat. If people don't watch your video all the way to the end or as close to the end, then it's not working. It means they don't like it. Now, if you want to get to the end of the video, because often there's a logo and things are playing down, but if you can get it on average to above 75%, then you're laughing, because it means your content works. And now what I want to show you is, these are some stats from our own website. We can actually track individual IP addresses down to an email address using Wistia. So they come into our email marketing, when they click on the thumbnail of the video, it registers their IP address, and I can see how many videos they watched, how long they watched before when they first came on. Now, these are some pretty large numbers here, not everyone does this. We've got a lot of different metrics, but I thought I'd show you some that might actually...
I thought I'd show you some that kind of prove everything we're saying about making content the sort of religious way and trying to drive people back to your site the whole way. So this first person here has spent 2 hours, 45 minutes on our website, has watched 138 videos, and their average engagement is 79.9%. So keep coming back, and they came 3 months ago. So they've actually converted now, and behind that you can see their email address, which I obviously had to hide. You can see a bit sticking out, it's a bit of proof there, so I'm not making this up. So yeah, they may have converted over a 3-month period. This one here, 3 hours 53 of our videos they've watched. All of these are pretty much vlogs. Their average engagement is 91%, so pretty much watched every video we've produced all the way for nearly 4 hours. It's Titanic. Same, there's another big number there. Top one here, this is the most I've ever seen. This person spent 10 hours watching 406 videos. Engagement's slightly lower, I'll let them off because it's 10 hours. And this person here was a historic moment for us. It was the first person to ever convert through our systematized video marketing process. They never spoke to us, they just signed up for something. And we've been trying to create a product we can sell off the shelf and just make people buy from us and build relationships. And so that was the first they did. And it took 2 hours, 12 minutes, and they watched 113 videos. So when people are selling you a video and telling you all this stuff, it's not gonna make these magic conversions. It's a long process. I think I've blocked up how long it took. But think about it this way, right? If I'd spent 2 hours, 12 minutes with this one person in a meeting, that's probably how long it may take on the phone when you're going face to face and so on. So it's just been done digitally. The time, it hasn't sped anything up. It just means I'm not actually there, although to them, I am. And then yeah, the stats continue. And I'm more than happy to show you more on the computer later if you want. The more average one looks something like that. They've gone on for half an hour or stuff. So if you want to create these statistics where you keep people watching content, it's 4 golden rules to follow. And this is the ingredients for great video. As we spoke about earlier, most people are saying just make something and don't just make something. It needs to be actionable. Now, actionable content gives them something to do. So we saw John earlier, who's doing the meeting video, and he gave you a system. Now, if I can give someone some information, they go away and practice it, and then they get a result. They've had my service totally free, and they're going to start to have this value built up. So giving people things to do in your educational content, especially at the end, go away and try this, is key. You need to make it entertaining, which we'll go into in way more detail in a bit. But it's thinking about, it's not necessarily being as playful as us all the time. It might be just a matter of making sure it's not waffle. Informative, so you need good information. I've actually seen a recruitment consultant video that was for very sort of senior positions, and the first tip he gave was to dress smart. I thought, who's going to go, wow, do you know what, I need to show my friend John that, because he's always turning up to CEO interviews in his shorts. And it needs to be opinionated, just like then. So opinions are great because they'll annoy some people, but they'll also resonate with some people. And actually, if someone disagrees with you on LinkedIn, they comment, and you can either reply politely, you can ignore it, but it goes out to an audience elsewhere. You're not trying to annoy people, but you want to start conversations, and you'll find that if 50% of people don't like what you have to say, and 50% of people do, it's a huge amount of people who can potentially be on the same wavelength as you and see your purpose and meaning. So getting those things into all your videos, really a minimum of 2, I'd say. If you can get all 4 in, then you're laughing. And then after engagement, there are some other metrics to measure. So as I mentioned earlier, I don't count likes, because people just like stuff for the sake of it half the time. If you have 1 million likes, it might be different. So the first one is this watch time, as we've just been speaking about. The next one's comments. It's actually creating conversations with people on your videos or on your blog post, or just on the phone. And a lot of the time what happens with us is, using one of them as an example, they rang up and because they've watched 100 videos, they really know about our systems and everything about us, they know how it works, and the conversation's all about, oh yeah, like I saw in that video you did about this, that they get it and they come and use our service and it's better. Tags, tagging people in the posts, so Instagram, LinkedIn, shares, and yeah, I've already mentioned this, but phone calls. And these are really the things that you know that your video is working. Now, if you've got analytics and you've got a lot of traffic coming in and you've got big data that you can analyse, then yeah, you'll be able to see that putting video on certain web pages will spike things and improve it. But for most of the businesses we deal with, they don't have the resources, they don't have the knowledge, and they just don't have enough traffic to ever get any value out of those metrics. So we have to look at ones that they can measure that are a lot simpler.
So that brings us on to formats, which we hinted at in the first video we watched here. What are formats? Why do they matter? Do you need them? So formats are, in simple terms, a box, a creative box that has limits. Because if every time you go to make a video, it's completely bespoke, right? We're going to find out a creative way of making this, we want this shot to look like this, and then you're going to quickly get bogged down in all sorts of creative decisions which are taking you away from the content. So you want to, we think, keep it simple and get a format that limits your creative opportunities, actually. Because when you do that, you actually get more creative. Who's been given just a couple of materials, before, as a kid or something, right? I've only got a piece of paper and a pencil. All right, that's all you've got to play with. Well, you can get more creative than that. You've got this whole art department, make anything you want. It's an impossible choice because there's too much going on. So make sure you use a format that's nice and tight. We've got some suggestions for those. We recommend when we're making content that we fit into a format. And then, most importantly, you can start to batch your content. Make lots of it, but start by making a format that works, that you know gets the engagement that you want. And then you can go and iterate and make slight changes to it here and there, but you're testing. Does this work? Yes, it does. It's nothing to do with the creativity, it's to do with the content, because we know the format works. You've been focused on more important things. So that way you can make content fast, it's measurable, because then you can watch, you've got 5 or 6 different vlogs, and you know that one spiked and got a lot of attention. It's because of the content, it's not because of the way that it was made, because they're all made very similar. So that's the other thing, that makes it very measurable, and that will tell you very quickly what to make more of. So if you've got one post that got 5,000 views, say on LinkedIn, which we've been talking about a lot today, because I think it's a great tool for recruiters, then analyze that piece of content to death. Why did that connect? Was it the thumbnail? Why did people watch it, or what were they talking about afterwards? Find out the patterns, and then you can start to make more of that content. And then, through those formats, you'll start to understand what your actual voice is as a company, as a brand, and as a group of people. And that has purpose and meaning, but you need formats to help you get there. So let's have a look at a problem that Ed hinted at, which was entertainment. We're going to talk about this a bit more, because one of the traps is you think, oh, I might be funny, say. You don't want to necessarily be funny because it might not suit your brand. So what do you get, I think this comes up as a trap for SMEs, because although they'd like to be entertaining, and this does touch on being entertaining, what does that look like? So here's some guidance from us on humour.
A lettuce ate my grandmother. Now that's a headline that...
We tend to be known for absurd business videos, and it may just seem to the casual observer that we're clowning around with our clients. No.
But of course, humour is a strategy choice, and one that you should deploy carefully. So this is our serious guide to using humour in business videos. First, some practicals. Number 1, don't be funny.
We were like kid in class who always tried really hard to be funny.
Wasn't any kid in my class like that.
The problem with that kid was he was focusing on the wrong thing.
See, being funny isn't the aim. Communicating new information is. So, finding a creative way to be a bit playful with delivering that communication is what you should be striving for. Number 2, absurd, not wacky. If humour is your strategy, then when it comes to actually making the videos, you're going to find a huge gap between the hilarious concept in your head or on paper
and the mechanical realities of shooting. Not all sentence, This is the Dave show today.
If it's feeling weird and wacky for you, then there's a good chance your audience is getting the same thing. So you need to get more structure.
Absurd is different to wacky. It's deliberate, dry, and it lets everyone in on the joke, including the viewer and the participant, and most people don't mind it.
Think smaller, more subtle, and be very deliberate. And then test it out. Did it work as intended? So that's some of the practicals. Let's have a look at some of the pros and cons of actually using humour in videos.
Humour is one of our evolutionary trump cards. As a species, we use it to break down barriers, and that's a major advantage.
Humour is a sign of vulnerability, that you are not a threat.
As an organisation, this can make you approachable and seem nice to work with.
But if your aim is, say, to be an elite brand attainable only by the wealthy, then of course this may backfire.
In short, you need to align your values with your brand.
Where does that take us to? So let's get more practical about within the format. Let's drill down. If you're actually making this sort of content, how would you make it? So we're going to step you through some of the things that will help you to get your head around the practicals of getting creative from start to finish of a video. The first thing is talk about beginnings. This lady here was talking about the first 3 seconds of video. It is really important those first 3 seconds have some traction. And you often spend, we found, more time on the very beginning of the video. What information are you giving in the first few seconds that help people understand the context. Are they in the right place? So a shopper's pivot is what we call it, and we'll watch a video in a moment on this, but the shopper's pivot is part of informational architecture. And we've called it a shopper's pivot because when you go past a window and you look in and see something of interest, it just gets your attention. That's all it does. It needs to be relevant to what you're looking for, because you don't want to be looking for shoes and you're going past a shop that sells, I don't know, dog collars. But the point is, you're going to go past and go, oh, it's relevant to me, that's interesting, there's an enormous shoe, I'm going to go in. And you go in and you buy something else. You won't buy the enormous shoe, but you will go into that shop. So shopper's pivot is all about that. You want your audience that you don't want to skim past you. And you want the audience that you do want to go in and have a look around your content. So the best way, I think, to understand the power of a shopper's pivot, and then I'll talk about how to actually make one, is a video by a marketing theorist, Grant Lebov.
A lettuce ate my grandmother. Now that's a headline that might encourage you to read the opening paragraph. And that's exactly how a newspaper works. What you never do is read the body copy before you've read the headline. Now that is information architecture. A good headline will grab you and encourage you to give a little more time to the story. Yet people often ignore information architecture on their own media channels. For example, how often have you gone on someone's website and on the homepage you're immediately asked to download a white paper? But that's like asking someone to read the body copy before they've looked at the headline. Information architecture tells us that we have to take our customers and prospects on a logical journey. A headline might encourage us to watch a 25-second teaser video. After that, we might choose to read a 300-word blog, and on the back of that, we may be asked to download a white paper. Of course, information architecture is dependent on getting a great opening headline, such as, "A lettuce ate my grandmother." I did wonder why she'd been so long at the shops.
Can't not talk about either lettuces or grandmothers. It can't just be absurd. It needs to connect to the actual information. But when you're thinking about what is a shopper's pivot, you've probably got it already in your content. You take the most interesting part of the content that you've got. It could be a statistic, it could be an anecdote, it could be a metaphor that it unpacks the whole situation in a unique way, but you need to put that at the front. And then as long as you satisfy the desire to understand what the shopper's pivot was about in the content, your audience will stay with you. And you know what? They'll stay with you all the way to the end, because you've offered them purpose and meaning.
Without that, you won't get the larger engagement that the video is always missing. You have to have that.
Exactly. It's the larger engagement, which is hard work, but it's the larger engagement that compounds over time, so that people keep coming back. And will, if offered a video from you or your brand, will keep watching them. And although I was going to talk about at the end, while I'm on this, I'm going to talk about the loop. We're talking about meaning. Humans crave meaning, and so if you offer them a shopper's pivot that then is unpacked in the main part of the video somewhere, and then you make a loop at the end that refers back to the beginning, you've closed the circle. People love these circular stories. We love referencing the beginning of the story at the end. It happens in films all the time. You get taken back to the beginning of the film and it gives people closure. In fact, directors deliberately don't give you an open ending to alienate you. That's a device as well. But if you want to make people feel satisfied and want to come back for more, they need to loop it. It could be as simple as just making a reference to the gag you made at the beginning or the absurd reference you made or something like that. Don't be one of those statistics we talked about. Do this. It could be as simple as that, but make it so that people feel like, oh, okay, I'm always going to get this meaningful connection when I watch these videos. All right, so after the pivot, let's go back to start. You then want to structure your content around these formats. Talk about the problem. There's got to be a reason why you've made this content. You must talk about a problem so that people feel that they're definitely in the right place. This is something I felt as well. Make sure you articulate that problem really clearly. Okay, so you know your industry. What is the problem? Whether it's interview nerves or best practice for what to wear. Those things are problems. Articulate them clearly and then offer solutions. Now, the solution might be unique to your business, might not be, but that's where your research is. You've got to offer new information. Otherwise, if you're just regurgitating the same stuff that's out there, it won't work. And no one's going to feel like they get new information when they watch any of your videos. So that is where some research is needed, but you know what, your experience is it. And if it's honest, and it's your experience, that can often be the solution. Alright, so before you finish though, you always need to remember, then we get told this a lot, I know by a lot of marketing people, have a call to action. It's the same for video as it is for general marketing, but you know, your CTA and engagement should be a pretty seamless part. It should be not just like let me know your thoughts, that's too broad. Here's something that's actionable. Go away and do this. Or if you've had this problem or you want some help with this specific thing, then get in touch. Don't make it broad. It can't just be a, wanting to say something, give us a like. Yeah, give us a call that's too broad. So make them specific to the content, if you can.
We don't tend to use it on our own videos at all. We just point towards the next relevant bit of information, another video or download. And we've stopped locking our downloads away as well behind email walls. We just give them to people because we want them to use them. Nothing should get in the way. When they do use them, it bounces back on us the right way. So we're trying to get rid of call to action, which is just like marketing sick, but it seems to be working so far.
Well, exactly. Once you've got enough content, then you've got that compound engagement, then of course you could just point them to the next helpful bit of content. Or have another look at this. Have you thought about this issue? You could be doing that. But in the short term, you want a call to action that's specific to that content. So we talked about the loop. Let's move on to how to shoot your own video. What are the basic practices?
Okay, so this is just a list of the things you need to do to shoot your own videos. We're not going to go into super detail on this, but the first thing to note is, again, when you hear these, just shoot it, just get in front of the camera, that's here in the list. They've missed out 1, 2, 3, 4. So they've not created the right environment to film. So if you're filming in your living room, you've automatically opened up a lot of subjective views that may come your way about your curtains, the messiness of your house. It's too distracting. So you need to build a studio that can eliminate anyone's objectives to your decorations. And it's often the simple case of just a plain wall. That's fair enough if you're doing it yourself. But creating a designated studio in your office where people can come in, sit down, it's a creative space, plug in their phone or the camera and get going is the best way to do it. You then got to research your content. There's no point putting out, like we said, lightweight content earlier about the guy who said dress smart. If he turned around and said, wear a red tie, because statistically you're more likely to get a job by 5%, it's slightly more interesting, so put the research into what you're going to talk about. You then got to plan it out. Now I often advise just bullet points, not necessarily writing a whole script here, because when things get scripted, you become an actor, and it's a lot harder to do, so you need some leeway to move around, and bullet points do that. You can then write it, and then turn it back into bullet points. That's what I tend to do. And then you film it. So all of the important bit is not being done if you just jump into filming. And that's how you're guaranteed to make bad video. And then ideally you've got to edit it, and this is the bit where most people don't bother. If I didn't edit our videos, I don't know, we'll be standing right now. Editing is adding creativity to it, adding value to it. It's also hiding a lot of stuff that goes wrong, because if you're not dealing with experienced presenters, sometimes you do have to cover them up or do something to make them look slightly more confident. And then you've got to distribute it. And then you've got to learn from it and repeat it. So when you're shooting your own video, really the filming is the smallest part. And when we shoot our own vlogs, it takes the comments are almost taking us a day to write, shoot, distribute, and the filming part is the 20-minute bit. Everything else is where we put all the time and effort into to get them to work.
It does get faster, but and the filming won't be fast either, but if you're doing it yourself, you want to take the time to get it right and then speed up.
So this is often what stops a lot of people when getting their team involved in their videos, is that it's terrifying getting in front of the camera. It's a skill that takes getting used to it. People don't want to look back at themselves and think, oh no, I look really awkward there. And no matter how good you are, even if you're really good, the first time you do it, you're going to hate the sound of your voice, and you are going to think that you suck. And even people who walk into our studio and they do really well, they still hate watching themselves back. It's something you kind of have to get over. There's actually
who's gotten over this? Who's fine with cameras? Anybody? Didn't think so.
So the reason why we choke and why we struggle with presenting into a crowd and also to cameras, this video should unpack.
The 2018 Champions League final between Liverpool and Real Madrid would not only see one of the greatest ever goals in a final, but also the greatest example of choking.
In fact, it was so bad the player in question choked not once, but twice. They had to get someone on to give them the Heimlich maneuver. The thing is, making mistakes or
choking is actually pretty common. And it's only when you find out why we do it that you can start to overcome it.
When we practice something to become great at it, we use our prefrontal cortex, or the conscious part of our brain.
Once we've learned something, our brain then moves that information to the unconscious area and runs it on autopilot. Think about something as simple as holding your phone. Your brain sorts it out for you. You don't have to think consciously, I need to close my fingers onto my phone. Although, I just did. It's kind of weird. Meanwhile, our conscious mind can concentrate on learning new things. Choking is when, due to severe focus, your brain hits a switch and sends tasks that have been automated by the unconscious mind back to the conscious mind.
Unfortunately, Karius had made the switch, meaning he accessed the wrong brain system for the job. It didn't matter how great of a keeper he was now at the mercy of his conscious mind, and he'd accessed a neural pathway that he hadn't used since he was a novice.
And that pathway might not have been accessed for saving a ball since he was 5. Basically, they had a childhood goal at the Champions League final.
Once the conscious system has kicked in, it's really hard to snap out of it, which is probably why he made 2 fatal errors.
So how do you overcome choking when presenting? Well, let's face it, all you've got to do is talk, and that's something the brain automated when you were 12.
3.
Unfortunately, it's not actually that easy to stop yourself switching to the conscious mind in these situations. In order to stop choking, you have to relieve yourself of the pressure.
This means realizing your unconscious mind has all the info right in its hands. You need to find something that helps you relax. For example, some people choose deep breaths. Sports people tend to list all the things that are more important to them at this moment to help them remain calm.
From personal experience as someone who's choked many times before, I found that the best way to overcome it was actually just knowing this information we've been over now. I can now trust that my brain will do all the hard work for me. So if you're watching this, you can thank me later.
The thing is, making mistakes or
Did I come in too quick? Not this again.
Choking is actually pretty common.
It's only when you find out why we do it that you can start to overcome it.
Alright, so let's have a look at presenting. Now, in order to, I think, frame this, I think it's important to see what happens when we work with people that aren't, were not native presenters, come up against this problem. And what you can do if you have some direction. So the aim of this is to show you before and after of what presenting, how presenting can be changed really quickly. Only a few minutes. There's only a few minutes between this first take of Mandy and the second take.
Okay, so I've enjoyed a successful and senior career and enjoyed earning some good money. What I didn't have was good financial advice, and I've sort of reaped the rewards of that. I've done something fairly radical. I've actually become a wealth manager, and I will... So here's the problem. Most people don't understand the options available to them in financial planning. And this means that many people make poor choices, or worse still, none at all. Now, I've made a change. I think for me it was more than just the film itself. It was around really making me think about what my message was. And I was talking to somebody this morning about clearing the fog. And I think for me that's absolutely what's happened. Is it's made me really think about what I need to offer and the way I'm putting it over. And I have to say that David and Ed have been absolutely fantastic. And when I've made a fool of myself, haven't made me feel stupid at all, have been very encouraging, given me some fantastic feedback, and actually the progress that I've had in 2 or 3 short sessions has been phenomenal, and I would highly recommend it.
We recommend the same person every time. Okay, so if you are coming and seeing us, basically as directors, we're the media officers. We're there to backstop. And we can give you some simple techniques that you can use on yourself, but ideally you have somebody else who's inside the loop with you, all right? So that they're feeding back to you. And then you can just concentrate on delivering the content well. Do it this way, or try this technique, or do this. Here's what's not working, all right? And you can get used to really cool, nice feedback that isn't which doesn't help. All right, so these are the techniques that you need to use really coolly, and they will help you make and present great content. All right, the first thing we've talked about, hinted at, was ditch the script. You're going to write the content, you're going to research it, of course you are, but then you're going to turn it into bullet points. All right, because otherwise you literally will sound like you're reading a script. All right, so the fact is that if you only talk in small chunks of information, which I'm going to come to in a moment, you're going to sound a lot better. It's just the way way it works. But this is this leads us on to the first take of trying that, and you really need to be prepared to fail. And I'm not saying this as if you haven't done video before. I'm sure it sounds like most of you have. Is the most common thing that happens at the beginning of the process is, or in any session, is I'm going to nail this, and you don't, and you beat yourself up. You don't want to worry about that. What you want to do is actually start with the fact that you're going to fail. Expect it, because you want to make the best takes. Do 2 or 3 takes. Know that that's going to happen. Expect that, and then look for the things that work so that you can be a bit easier on yourself. And here's a little tip for those that may not come across as, let's say, enthusiastic as you want. I mean, you don't want to. I think one thing that Brett's suspicious of, and as a Kiwi looking in from the outside, as I notice, is more you don't want to come across as American. You don't want to be too over the top, all right? But you do want to be clear, all right? And you don't want to appear that you're terrified to be there, because otherwise that's a distraction. So you need a technique that helps you get to the level that looks natural. And here's the secret thing. We use panto mode. So pretend you're delivering a pantomime and it's a bit over the top. Just try that as a take. It may not be the one you use, but do it for this reason. You have to, the camera just sucks the life out of you. It just does, because it's a really self-conscious thing. All right, so if you over-project, like you're doing a pantomime, what you find is that at about 120% of your normal talking voice, when you're talking one-on-one, well, not volume, just over-projection, that whole projection will make you look like you're a normal human being on the receiving end. So try 2 takes. Try the take that you think is right, and then do one that's ridiculous, it's so over the top that you can't possibly use it. And then notice the things in it that appear natural, and just use them more, all right? Without seeing yourself doing that, you won't be able to make those choices. So the next thing is, think of chunks of information. So that's what we're talking about, those bullet points. You've got the gist of it, you've written it all down, well, just chunk it. What's the information? You go back to your problem, solution, calls to action. But within that, there's still chunks of information. And that solution might be 5 or 6 chunks of information. You're not trying to remember it all, that's too much pressure. Let's just chunk it into little bits and then deliver. So it may be only a few lines long, a couple of lines. You'll remember it, don't use it, well, I suppose this brings on auto cues, but auto cues are quite dangerous, because in the end, you end up looking like you're reading it. You can't help it because you are reading it. If you don't have an auto cue, you still have your eye line with the camera in this format that we've talked about, but you'll find that it's just more natural and easier. Okay. And that means that you've got these jump cuts if you're using the same format. And we would recommend, if you are going to be editing it, then if you've got one frame that's this big and one frame that's this big, then there'll automatically be a lot of energy. You may or may not have noticed in our videos that, or you've seen people at different sizes, that's why. So people aren't remembering an enormous amount of information. They're remembering a little bit, chop, increase or decrease the frame size, and then in the edit, it'll come together. You just bolt them together and voila, suddenly all your best takes, you look amazing. But hopefully you look pretty good. So the 5th point is length. How long? And this isn't a how long is piece of string question, but it is depends on where in the funnel you're at. So think of your funnel and think it's big and wide. Top, that's the shorter videos. So it's opposite of what it looks like. At the top of the funnel where it's big, they need to be short. And we're talking 40 seconds max. And further down the funnel you get, it could be a 10 or 15 minute training video, whatever is required for practical reasons to cover that information. But you've got a highly engaged audience further down, and so they might tolerate longer videos. But why make it long if you can get the same information into a very short space of time? So you should always be trying to make it as short as you possibly can. If you can get the same information out in 25 seconds in the most imaginative, creative way, and yet it still touches all those boxes we were talking about, it's clear, it's actionable, it gives people something to go away and try, then you've won. But there it is. Nonetheless, if you really want to guide, for any promo, don't go over 90 seconds, preferably 40 is what we found in our experience, keeps people. So the Ellis Mason one with the unicorns, for example, that might be the first touch point, regardless of the fact that they might have seen the odd vlog or something like that. They go onto their website, that's the first sales video they watch, it's 40 seconds. Okay, good, I get these guys, I'll move on to something else. That's as long as you want to be. But when you're vlogging about something that it's got a complex answer, then 2 or 3 minutes. Why not? But you've got to remember that that's an audience that you want to keep them coming coming back. So if you make the video too long, they're not going to want to come back the next time. If you are editing, then we recommend using text and images. This is as opposed to subtitles. Assume you haven't got subtitles for now, for the argument of this. Using text in the video should be reinforcing what is being talked about, and only. If you use text that is different, or somehow making another point while somebody's talking, the viewer's brain is going to be competing between the visual of what's telling them, because it's trying to read that, and what they're hearing, and that's a clash. So make sure it's used sparingly and it just reinforces. I've just said that. But the images we found work best if they're evocative, if they're below the surface of the meaning. So put something in. That's where you can get really creative. It can take a bit of time, but there's but images that can be really powerful. Just like in your presentation slides, when you're doing a PowerPoint, you add an evocative image that helps people understand what's going on. It's the same process if you're adding images to your videos. The intro can be a bit of a trap. You know what? The easiest way out when you're starting a video is like, introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Dave, I'm from Business Film Booth, and I've spent years doing this, that, and the other, and so on. The next thing you know, you're off on a waffle train. So what you want is to make sure you don't do that, is to start with that shops pivot. There's no intro. The intro can come up as a super or text later. But you also want to act like, why wouldn't you know me? Of course you're watching lots of videos of ours, so you assume that people are wanting to know the information. Just get to that straight away. I'm not saying they don't care who you are, but they don't, at first. And so you need to accept that in the online world, it's impersonal. They've come for certain information, they want to get it. Give it to them, and then over time, it's accumulative. People will get to know you. And your super will come up just saying who you are. They'll get to know you that way.
Okay, which kind of brings us to the end, really. It's quite interesting that you've asked the question about other video production companies, because our main takeaway from this is really that don't let people convince you that video works. It's just a technology. The things that have been working and will always work are the things from the past before we had any of this great technology. It's just a catalyst. It's just something we can use to take our purpose and meaning and systematise our entire business at every stage of the funnel. To actually eliminate people having to do the work over and over again, they can just create a system that works for them. But we still cannot leave behind the personal connection and the relationships that need to be built in order to win new business. Anything else?
It's a purpose and meaning. That's the loop back to the, it's a really weak loop to the beginning. But don't be afraid because of having that purpose and meaning, because often we feel that we're not allowed to say what we really think, and I really believe we ought to be. And be really specific. That's my best advice, because you're after an audience that you want to go, oh, I can't think of anybody else that's uniquely qualified to look after me. So being specific and relevant equals meaning, we found in video land. So I hope that is helpful, and we think we've left a bit of time for Q&A, I'm not sure.
Yes, we've got some time for Q&A. So if you've got any questions for either Dave or Ed, please put your hand up. I will get one of our roving mics and pass them on. So, any questions?
Oh, good. Happy days. That is good news. This is going to be short.
We had a small technical issue, so if you could just shout it out, that would be fantastic.
How could live streaming work for recruiters?
I'm going to defer to Ed on this one. It's got a more technical head around this.
Why are they coming to watch the live stream? What's the equation we get across?
My thought would be it takes a lot of effort to make a video for something like a job ad, which is very short-lived thing sometimes. So I was thinking maybe a quick way for a recruiter to do a job ad and then add it to LinkedIn, might be live streaming or something like that.
Yeah, so I'll go back to the list of how to make your content that works. The live thing, when people do live well, they've been preparing for days to make it look live. Also, you've got to then put in the time to prepare it to do it. So you might say, I've lost a day preparing this live stream, or maybe now, I don't know, it's about that really thinking. You then got to do it live. You then got to have someone potentially answering questions as well, because you don't want to be distracted with it. You want someone kind of doing that. So, although it's cool in that it becomes becomes this almost like the big breakfast, you know, anything can happen sort of thing. People do like watching it. You've lost the systematization that you probably get from video that you may be able to repeat a few more times. And I agree, you can probably then record it and put it out over and over again. But going live is more terrifying than doing video. It's the next step up.
It's
do it. Because we rely on a lot of other things to make it engaging. So I wouldn't say don't do it, I'd say give it a shot, but if it doesn't reap much benefits that you can see from the things we've spoken about, comments, interaction, engagement, then stop doing it and look at something else. But yeah, that's actually just for advertising in particular jobs.
Yeah, potentially. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, so is it like the top 10 jobs this week sort of thing coming out?
It might be for a hard to find role, something like that.
Okay.
Where we would put, you know, one of the recruiters would just put something out to their network on LinkedIn. A little comment.
Can you go live on LinkedIn? Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe
you can on Facebook and it notifies everyone. LinkedIn don't have it yet. So
but the same guy that ran the Facebook video and startup is now working for LinkedIn, so
I know they're looking to have more.
Yeah. I don't know, I mean, I don't watch anyone live. I watch people live, maybe like if someone who has a big following, so like Neil Patel, if someone live, I trust Neil enough to give him what might be 15 minutes. It's live, you don't know how long it is. So it's currency stealing off me, it's my time, so it's got to be of value. I don't tend to watch people's live streams I've not experienced before. So if they're experiencing the trust you really, further down your funnel, then yeah, you might get a viewer. But I'm not convinced it's the big solution to problems that it is touted as. But video is the same problem, so is automation. It's just sort of solved extravagantly. So yeah, it's kind of the best I can do, I'm afraid.
That's cool.
Do we have any other questions?
Do you think there's any value, in having a particular plan in the United States? So if you're going to do video, do this much, it's at the same time every day?
Yeah. You need to look at YouTube, probably hear it on help. So you'll hear it which we discussed, video maybe once or twice a year, really out, because we'll be throwing a bunch of that, then you have hard content, it's your weekly show. So what you've seen of us, that goes out every Thursday. We haven't missed one for 2 years. You have to put it out, because you actually build an audience, people who start to expect to see it. Yeah, so one video a week, you then got your help content. If you go by YouTube and you want to build a YouTube strategy, you need to build three a week out of really simple help content videos. I try to do it, we start to do it on Business on Out, do it one day. So if you can try and get one a week out, that's awesome. Most people do once a month. So on my LinkedIn, I put a video every day, which was such a big catalog now.
I was going to say, you build a load and then you can...
Yeah, well, you want to build them over time, because if I go on, we've got 600 videos across sales, if I go on and look at them one go and go, oh, these are very good, you need to stage it out and work out what works, and there's a big difference between what we made 2 years ago across sales and what we do now, this works. So you do have to have a strategy, you need to think about problems. We rang our clients and asked them similar stuff we asked from the beginning, what don't you understand about video, and it was pretty much that they had no idea what's going on. So we built an online course to teach them how to research video, and so far so you need to work on their problems, address them, and distribute them through them. Sorry, you had a question?
What was the most successful video that you've ever made, apart from what you talked about? Was there anything surprising that made it successful that you didn't expect?
As in for as we made for ourselves or for a client? Yeah, sure.
So we have the ability to track everything we do. We can't get rid of it. And actually a lot of this was they didn't actually track it by themselves to give us that data.
With a client that
I think it was witnessing someone cry at the end of one of our videos because they were so touched by it. Which wasn't one of them.
That's nice. It was nice, but I think what you mean is what's measurable in terms of success. I mean, when you do make a connection and people do come to you interpreting in the way that you wanted it to be interpreted, that's really pleasing because you've advanced the level of conversation. But you want to, in terms of how you maximise that, I think the most obvious anecdote that we've got was where a client became a member and was making regular videos with us. Decided he'd come at it from the fact that wills and probate is literally the most boring subject you could possibly talk about. No one wants to talk about it either. And he turned he turned the idea of talking about wills and probate into a series of nursery rhymes that we videoised. And so he had a lot of fun with it. He changed the tone of how people approach that subject, and literally the first video he put out, he got business off the back of, like immediately, which doesn't, I'll be honest, we don't tout that because that doesn't normally happen. But what happened was, the meaning that he intended connected with an audience and said, thank God there's somebody out there that doesn't talk about this in a way that's really dry and boring. I want to talk to them. I actually will get my will done through you now. So I
shared something on Twitter, and then their friends seeing it and calling us directly, because now I've built someone else into the marketing machine. That's great, so we can scale that up. This was us two posting all the time, so that's the same currency again. That's what I'm trying to continually do.
But our clients, we host on our platform, so our clients can use it, but a lot of the clients that have made content with us will then take it off the platform and go elsewhere. So we can't measure, we're not sure, but we anecdotally know that.
Were you looking for viral?
Yeah, viral. No.
We did have a client go viral. Sure.
Yeah.
34 million views in a day. She got inquiries from Ghana, America. She had no systems in place to put up with going viral, so made no money at all from it. She ended up on This Morning and took shows and so on. But yeah, you don't want to go viral. It could ruin you unless you've already got the systems in place.
Without the capacity, and this is often a conversation that's important to have early on, is that knowing what sort of intention that you would get and engagement you might get from a piece of content, or at least what that goal is, has implications. You know, and if you can't service those clients, you get a bad reputation. So you want to always be scaling up incrementally in ways that you have capacity to deal with.
Nice presentation, thank you. If I wanted to get a testimonial from a client, how would I persuade the account manager to buy into that and may not want to reveal their client's name or
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It is. You might just get stuck with that.
Yeah.
The one we showed you, she's convinced 12 companies now interested in it, and she's just very persistent. But if there's that, so sometimes companies like McLaren, they want in 20 grand to appear in one of our clients' testimonial videos. We're not going to do that. So you just have to work at it. Often what we do is we give them videos to send to them, because a lot of the concern they have as well is what I look like on camera. So if they realise they're going to come across all right, they always will make sure they do. And then there's less of those concerns. And we only need 20 minutes of their time. So you don't need to hold them down and ruin that whole day. So it's just making headlines as easy as possible, really, but otherwise there's no real magic fix for it, is there?
No, it does come up a lot. We have to put it back in our client's court. We will help and offer the resources, and on occasions I have actually talked to the person who is going to be on camera to give them an idea of what that process is. But it often comes down to, I just don't want to be on camera, more than, and then they'll give another reason, which is, well, I don't want to. But it might be actually, in this case, we just can't, for legal reasons or other, or policy reasons. So can't really argue. Yeah, you can't really argue with that.
We just put like a bag on their heads. Sorry? Put a bag on their heads, distort their voice.
Distort their voice. That's always a good look. Yeah, pixelate them. We're always working the news going. That voice doesn't really sell much.
Yeah, it's right. You don't ask it, yeah.
Did you offer like an incentive, like why was so big? To the person from the account?
It's not about getting a client to do it. It's actually them saying, "Hi, I use this agency. We're ABC Limited." And then all of a sudden, all your competitors can see, "Oh right, they want them."
Is that an issue in recruitment? Is it?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the bigger brands that are in there, better.
I think something that worked for us was emphasising their employer brand. So like the accountants video that you guys showed, you can say you might be doing some future recruitment with them in the future, and you can go, we've done, they all say we've done a campaign, but you get maybe one of the candidates you hire saying that this is a great place to work, and then you can then show that to future candidates, and they might buy into that idea.
If you're after the video-led marketing guide that Ed mentioned, it's Google Business Film Booth, and it is, but last year it's still on the homepage. You can find it straight away there. But just Google Business Film Booth, and it's. But it's definitely a clickable banner there somewhere, so you can just download.
I do
that.
every marketing team. It's got the side lead on the
So you can see some of our marketing in action, but you can that guide will cover a lot of the issues that people I think have around the framework. How do I come up with strategy? How do I research?
It's all about what's all the problems in the funnel, then working out the right content to solve it. It's step one there.
So just one last question. Talk about return on investment. I enjoyed the presentation very much. Obviously, small group company like ourselves. Can you tell me any sort of special recommends for us?
It's really affordable anyway.
Basically, we have set prices. So traditionally, production companies will bespoke. What we've done is gone, this is the product, we know it works, we know exactly how to make it, and that way we can keep cost down the business in this time. As far as I'm concerned, our rates are special but I know we can get the best job possible for the rest of the charge.
But you definitely can, from the video-led marketing guide, will give you enough information to at least start iterating yourself. You may or may not use it, but you'll get it up to a standard where you'll go, yeah, okay, this is a strategy worth pursuing. And I think that's really important for businesses to know they can and should do that before they start investing in video production. I definitely don't think it's something that we have, either people come through and understand what they're getting involved with and then talk to us, or we have a long conversation before they shoot anything, because it just, there isn't a jump in quick fix for video. It's all about strategy before you turn the camera on.
Yeah, we have things. We're also encouraging people to make their own now. So if you are thinking about making your own on our side, there's different courses and things that come with that. This one is planning and presenting and 10 hours.
We think a mixture, of produced content that is helping people at the pointy end of your marketing where it needs to have an impact, and then as they start to become engaged, you should be topping up with self-made anyway. Because the amount of content that you need to put out there, because people want it. They want to see people, they want to meet people, they want the information provided by people. And that's a good thing. And it's just a question of getting used to that new world and maybe pulling away the time from something else. Perhaps it was writing a long research and blogs, but now you're actually just making it already ready for video format. So we think a mixture.
What type of video content would you recommend to do?
For doing it yourself?
Yeah, with edits and stuff as well.
Okay. Well, there's a Sony attacking the vlogging market on YouTube. So Canon used to kind of lead the way with stuff for doing decent do-it-yourself cameras. There's one called the Sony A6500, and that is what a huge amount of vloggers use now. It gives you the option to make something look quite cinematic. If you've got people who your company's good in what's known as colour grading, you can make it look a lot more filming. But it's also for myself, just have fun basically. It's only got screaming into the business because it's so good. So that's probably what I look at 900 quid, 700, 800 quid, something like that. Is that more than you're thinking?
Most elite generation phones have a sensor in it that's as good as the cameras that we have. And if you use it the right way with the right lighting, your camera and your phone can do it.
The other option is to use your phone with a ring. So we've made something that's on our side with a jet. It's a light. It's got a light that comes out the bottom. You just put the phone on the mic and it's on wheels, and it has a ring on it. So that's what they use for PE shots. So it's quite flattering. But because of the setup, you can just use your phone and spend that cash on that, and that will give you something that looks and sounds very high quality. But if you want to go out and do more great stuff,
And what editing software would you recommend?
we use Final Cut Pro. If you've got the Adobe Creative Suite, most people use that. The problem we have with that is it's very slow to export and render things. And for us, we make a lot of videos, sit around waiting. You probably won't do either. So Final Cut's not expensive again. It's not really difficult. It's something Adobe comes with the package. Make it go with that.
Even start with iMovie or Windows Media Players. What's the free one there? Start with iMovie because the same principles apply in Final Cut. But if you've already been editing a bit on the free software, just get on to professional stuff because it saves you so much time if you're going to be doing a lot of it.
Anything for any more? Ed and Dave, thank you very much for your time. I think we've all learned something today, if not a few things more. So thank you very much. much. And can we get a round of applause for them? The forum will be made available on demand. The beauty of filming it is that we've got it, so if you want to go back and catch up with the list, that will be made available to you on the REC website. And we want to get as much feedback as possible, so if you've been tuning in online, we'd love to hear your thoughts. We know we've got some things wrong, but we know we've got some things right, but there's some things we're not aware of, so please let us know. And that's all we've got. So the next marketing forum will be towards the later end of the year, sort of November, December. So keep an eye out for that.